We are one day away from the NBA draft, and we had just heard from Troy Weaver in his pre-draft presser, and he dropped some gems. What did Troy Weaver tell us, and did he drop any kind of hints to us about what the Pistons could do tomorrow? We're going to talk about this in today's episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast.
You are Locked On Pistons, your daily Detroit Pistons podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's the deal? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast. Per usual, I'm your host, Kuka Hill. You can find me over on Twitter at Kuka Hill. I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We're free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn today to get started. A little later in the podcast, we'll talk about Troy Weaver talking about potentially taking advantage of the new CBA. We'll talk about what he means with that a little later. And then also we'll go a little further into the podcast. We'll talk about potentially trading back from 5. Will the Pistons do that? How likely is it that the Pistons will move back from 5? We'll talk about all that in a little bit. But first thing I want to talk about is, will the Detroit Pistons take a home run swing, or will they try to play it safe? And you could take a swing at, if they wanted to trade back to 6, 7, 8, 9. Do they want to play it safe no matter where they select in this first round? They're going to be selecting in this first round no matter what. I think it's a less than 1% chance that they somehow don't select in the first round if they were to trade this 5th overall pick for a player or something. I'd say it's like a less than 1% chance. I just can't see that possibly happening. So no matter what pick they select at, will they be going for more of a safe pick, or will they be going for the fences? And Troy Weaver spoke about this in his presser yesterday. I'll go ahead and quote him here. He says, when he was asked about boomer bust or solid versus long career, blah, 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 he says, quote, "You weigh all of that, but for me, I like the long ball. I'm not bunting or trying to slap it in a short center. I'm going to take a big swing, especially if I have only one chance at it." He went on to talk about how if he had multiple swings, then maybe he would take a bunt here, then swing, and then take another bunt. But he talked about how he only has one pick, and especially when he only has one, he wants to take a big swing. And I fully support this. Look, this is the Pistons. The Pistons just won 17 games. They don't have the, what's the best way to say this? It's not that they don't have any talent, but they don't have enough talent to where you should be looking for fit instead of best player available. They don't have enough talent to where you should be thinking about, a safe pick to help boost this team immediately rather than the long-term game. And Weaver also spoke about this as well. Excuse me. He also said, when he was asked about roster fit, if he was going to pick for a roster fit, he said, quote, "Not as much. We're going to stick to our ethos and make sure we get the best player that fits us in every way, the locker room, on the floor, in the community. We have a good nucleus of young men who do that. Fit over position, no. We'll do what's best for this team moving forward." So I don't think the Pistons are going to go, it sounds like from what Weaver's saying, I'd say that they probably aren't going to be going after Taylor Hendricks at 5. If they trade back, maybe. But I don't think they're going to go with Taylor Hendricks at 5 because I think he's more of a fit prospect. And I think while it doesn't rule out, excuse me, my goodness. While it doesn't rule out all the other prospects, for me reading in between the lines, it sounds like that he is more of a fan of taking a chance on an Ausar Thompson, potentially taking a chance on a Cam Whitmore. Those two guys are the ones I'd say have like the higher ceiling, the higher boom ceiling, according to fans and everyone. You guys know, I'm sorry, I just hit my mic. You guys know I'm a big fan of Ausar Thompson, but I could also see if someone wanted to put Cam Whitmore in that big home run swing. I could see how you could put him in that category. If Amen Thompson were to fall to 5, I think the Pistons would take him there. But I'm not too concerned about the Pistons potentially taking fit and passing up on best player available. Weaver seemed very, very straightforward when he was talking about taking the best talent there. There's a lot of stuff he talked about in this presser. You guys can find the full presser on YouTube. Just look it up. I believe Brad Galley has it on his YouTube channel. That's where I watched it. So if you guys want to watch the full thing and see exactly what he said about every question he was asked, go check that out. Some other things that he talked about when deciding who they're going to pick at 5. He mentioned that he believes that the draft is going to be incredibly unpredictable after the first overall pick. He said, quote, "I thought last year people thought they had it and it didn't go in that order. Obviously, there could be some shakeup from 2 to 10. It doesn't go according to plan. That's why you have to know all the players on the board." And what's interesting to me about that comment right there is a few things. One, it sounds like that he believes some guys could fall into their laps. And again, with the way he was talking, I don't think Scoot's falling into their laps. I think he's talking about Amen Thompson and potentially Brandon Miller. Those are the 2 guys I feel like he's kind of referencing when he says things could really get unpredictable there. I'd be interested to see who he would pick if either of those guys fell to them. And then another thing that, with that quote, that's really interesting to me is, we'll kind of talk about this in the final segment when we talk about trading back. But Weaver, on multiple occasions in this presser, talked about how that's why they need to know all the players in the first round. They need to have a good grasp of not just the guys they think they'll be there at 5. They need to have a grasp of all the players in like the first 20 players, whatever. They need to have a good grasp on a lot of players in that first round. So whatever happens in the draft, they're ready for it. If a guy that they want at 5's taken and they don't want somebody, they can trade back and get more assets, and they can feel comfortable about a guy they scouted because they did their work throughout the first round. So I don't think I think that comment he made doesn't just apply to, whatever happens before number 5. I think it applies even more so, to be honest, in a scenario where if they're met with a trade about trading back to maybe 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, if they're met with something like that, along with taking future assets with it for moving back, they can feel confident about what they're doing and understand the board and understand the players that could be there, and they can feel confident about it, confident or non-confident about the players that will be there. So that was my biggest takeaways from his presser, the fact that they're going to go for a home run swing, and the fact that they are very prepared for it. He made it seem like they're very prepared for just about any outcome that could be hit with them, whether it's a guy falling, whether it's a trade back opportunity, whether it's reaching or again taking a swing on a guy that maybe has a lower floor than someone else. Those were my biggest takeaways from Troy Weaver's presser. And I gotta say, I liked what he said throughout this presser, to be honest. I think he said a lot of good stuff. I think he was very revealing in some of his stuff. I know some people felt like he was pretty candid. I didn't think so. I thought he was actually pretty open and honest about some of his answers and some of his feelings about this draft, and not just the draft, but like the future of the Pistons. And when talking about the future of the Pistons, that can take us into the second segment when we talk about whether the Pistons will be able to take advantage of the new CBA and what does that even mean. We'll talk about that when we come back. But first, I've got to tell you guys about one of our sponsors, BetterHelp. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. Give online therapy a try at BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA and get on your way to being your best self. It's so easy to get caught up in what everyone else needs from you and never take a moment to think about what you need from yourself. But when we spend all of our time giving, it can leave us feeling stretched thin and burned out. Therapy can give you the tools to find more balance in your life so you can keep supporting others without leaving yourself behind. If you're thinking about starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Going with therapy, it can just help you get through the daily parts of your life. It can help you feel more confident about yourself. It can help you find better ways of handling your daily life. It's really beneficial to just about anyone who would be willing to give it a try. I've went through therapy before, and not because I have something wrong or anything, but just to give me some more confidence, give me some help in some areas that maybe I'm struggling with. And there's nothing wrong with that. And BetterHelp is your best place to check it out. You can find more balance with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. Again, you will get 10% off your first month using code LockedOnNBA at BetterHelp.com. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We're free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. Since we're speaking about the CBA, I want to correct myself on something I said on the last episode. When we were talking about Cam Johnson going into restricted free agency and having to wait those 48 to 72 hours because, with the rules of offering a restricted free agent offer sheet, the other team can now hold on to it, etc. I want to correct that. In the new rules that apparently, I completely forgot about these new rules. I don't know how I forgot about it, but starting this offseason, teams can't do that no more. They only have 24 hours. What I read yesterday is that they only have the teams that have a restricted free agent, once they accept an offer sheet, they can't hold for 72 hours. They can't hold for 48 hours. They only have 24 hours to decide what they want to do. So teams like the Pistons that could potentially get in restricted free agency don't get screwed over anymore. Like, that was the whole purpose of that rule. So I know that was a big talking point of the last podcast. I apologize for that. I completely missed that new rule, but I was educated on it yesterday. So while you can still miss out on free agents for 24 hours while you wait to find out if you can get them, it's not to the extent of like what I was describing in the over the last rules that we dealt with over the last, I don't know how long it was, 10 plus years or whatever. So just wanted to update that and clarify that because I was wrong with something. I didn't want to lead you guys astray. But returning even more so to the CBA, we've talked about this a few times in the podcast now. I've told you guys for a while that the CBA, I believe it was last week we spoke about it at the end of the podcast. And with the way the CBA, this new CBA is coming in, I believe it starts in 24-25 or 23-24, within the next 2 years, I believe. You got to be real careful with your contracts. And you can't just go into the luxury tax willy-nilly. You can't just buy a team anymore. You have to be very careful about the contracts you give. If guys are worth those contracts, if you give this guy a contract, can you compete? Because once you hit a certain line, there is no more, real flexibility to try and pull off some magic. Once you hit that second apron, you're screwed, really. It's just, you're not going to be able to build a team. It's tough. So it's going to be really interesting to see how teams like the Pistons that are kind of rebuilding, restoring, and getting to that next step, who they pick to give contracts to, how much they're willing to give guys, and how they decide to build their teams as they grow. It's going to be interesting to see that. But what's even more interesting is to watch the teams like Golden State, to watch teams like the Clippers, watch teams like the Lakers, watch teams like the Suns, watch teams like the Celtics, watch teams at the top of the NBA, Denver Nuggets. Watch teams at the top of the NBA who are paying a lot of guys a lot of money, and when the new CBA kicks in a year or 2 years from now, when that second apron kicks in, they're not going to be able to do that. You're already starting to see some teams try to prep and get ready for it. You just saw the Washington Wizards move off of Bradley Beal. There's been some rumors about some other teams already looking at possibly trading some guys because they know in a year, 2 years from now, they're going to be screwed. There's not going to be any wiggle room for them. They're not going to be able to make any moves. That's from a front office perspective, but from an ownership perspective, ownership's going to get taxed to living hell if you're in that second apron. It's going to be even worse than it was before. So there's going to be teams that are trying to get ahead of this, and there's going to be teams that when it happens, they're going to try to get out from underneath it. Which brings me to what we've talked about on the podcast before, which is the Pistons need to be ready for one of those situations. And Weaver, I'm really happy that Weaver spoke about this because it gives me confidence that he's seeing that same thing and that they're identifying the same stuff that I'm talking about. Because I really do think this is massively important, especially I know you guys hate it when I say this, but it's just the truth in the NBA as it pertains. A small market team like Detroit, like the Detroit Pistons in the NBA. They have to be able to take advantage of these kind of things. So this is how they're going to be able to get stars. And Weaver, when he was asked about the new CBA and how it impacts Detroit, he said, quote, teams will really have to start looking at their roster comp and how it plays out with contracts. There could be some vulnerable situations we could take advantage of. And I know I said my biggest takeaways were the home run swing, and that's because the draft is in a day from now. I'm recording this on the 21st. But this is probably my favorite quote by far, I know he had some other bars that, Troy Weaver always says something, but he had one when he was talking about how you can't walk through the streets at night with basically no weapon on you. Just like the same thing you can't do in the draft. Like, you can't go into the draft not prepared, ready for whatever happens. It was a pretty crazy comparison, but it was some bars. But by far, my favorite quote was about the CBA, because the Pistons, this is the best way. This is how the Pistons have built. This is the best way the Pistons have won championships. If you go back to the 2004 team, through trades, or obviously through drafting your own guys, or through trades. That's how the Pistons are going to have to do it, and they have to take advantage of, because they're not going to. Look, I just don't believe the Pistons will ever be able to sign a big name free agent like that. It's just not going to happen. It is what it is. We have to face reality. It hasn't happened. It's not going to happen. But what they can do is take advantage of situations in the trade market when they present themselves. So in a few years or next year, if one of these teams have to move off one of their guys because they just don't know if they can win a championship with this amount of money committed to two guys, they're going to be trying to move off them. It's going to be happening soon. It's going to be happening. And the Pistons are one of the teams that have to be in a position to be in the players of that dude's trade market. And what's even more interesting to me is that not only that Troy Weaver brings this up and that he's aware of it, what's going to be interesting to me is how they get enough assets to where they can be players in that. Because right now, we've talked about it a lot on the podcast too. If anything would have happened for a guy that they're interested in, let's just say, I don't know if they're interested in this guy. I personally wouldn't be too interested because of how much he's going to be getting paid in this next deal, and I don't think he's worth it. But let's just use this for example. If they were fans of Jaylen Brown and the Boston Celtics said, you know what? We're getting out ahead of the CBA. We don't want to commit this much money to just Tatum and Jaylen Brown. We don't think that's going to be enough. We don't want to do it. Jaylen Brown, you're on the move. We're putting him on the trade block. The Pistons don't have any deals for him. They don't have assets. I mean, unless you're getting rid of Jaden Ivey, Jalen Duren, or Kay Cunningham, the Pistons don't have assets. They don't have future picks. They don't have a ton of picks to trade. They don't have a ton of young players that they can trade. Like, if you look at let's just throw out the OKC Thunder. Not only do they have 6-7 young guys that teams would want, they have multiple picks for years and years and years on end. I hate to do this. I know this is a little rivalry for Pistons fans, but this is just the blatant truth. The Houston Rockets have way more assets than the Pistons do. Not just, they have a comparable young core. They have a lot of young guys that teams maybe would like. But when you look at their pick system, they have more picks to trade than the Detroit Pistons do. Right now, the Pistons still technically owe their pick to the New York Knicks. And until that conveys, it makes trading future picks tough to do. So not only do the Pistons not really have full control of their own first-round picks in the future, they don't have any extra first-round picks in the future, and they don't have 5 deep young guys where they can keep some of their top guys and then trade some of the other ones because they're still valuable. They don't have that. So it's really interesting to me that Weaver brought this up, which makes me think that they're going to be looking forward to trying to acquire assets some way, somehow. So when they feel like that, the new CBA kicks in for some teams and they try to get off of it, they're going to try to acquire assets in this time so they can be players. They can actually try to do things when that scenario presents itself. And heck, maybe it doesn't require getting too many big assets. Maybe Troy Weaver's thinking in the future, hey, I'm a package or Jalen Duren as someone, or I'm a package Jaden Ivey and someone for whatever star becomes available. Maybe they do that. I don't think a lot of us would like them to do that. I don't think I honestly don't believe they want to get off of those top 3 guys. But unless they get some more assets, some way, by trading vets when they have their most value, which they have not done in the recent years, unless they, trade back or use their 5th overall pick to acquire future assets, I just don't see how, even when that CBA kicks in for some teams and they try to get off guys, what's making the Pistons leap to the top of the the trade market where they'll be able to outbid teams like OKC, when they'll be able to outbid teams like the Houston Rockets, when they'll be able to outbid other contending teams that may be able to just swap great player for great player. I don't see what the Pistons could possibly have right now or in the near future if there was a player that they really, really like and they want to take advantage of, how they could even outbid enough to win and get that player. So I'm going to be really interested to seeing how Troy Weaver goes about getting into position to, like he said, take advantage of the new CBA when the time strikes. So I think that's super interesting development. It's going to be something to watch across the league, not just for the Pistons. It's going to be a lot of fun. I think this new CBA is going to make the NBA a little bit more fun the next few years. I think it's going to be getting pretty crazy. So let me know what you guys think about all of this. Comment section down below or over on Twitter at KookHill. When we come back, we'll talk about the possibilities of trading back. Does Troy Weaver sound like, through his presser, that trading back is something he will do? We'll talk about that when we come back. But first, I've got to tell you guys about one of our sponsors, FanDuel. Baseball season is in full swing, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Because right now, new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's up to $1,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. Just go to FanDuel.com/lockedon to join today. I've used FanDuel for a long time. I have a lot of fun on FanDuel. FanDuel has just about everything you could possibly think of. The same game parlays during the Pistons season. Same game parlays during the NBA, NFL season with some of my favorite things to do on FanDuel. And they also have some little, I call them mini games that you can do on FanDuel as well. There's a lot of fun stuff you can do on FanDuel. I really like FanDuel. So make sure you don't miss your chance to snag the no sweat first bet up to $1,000 when you join FanDuel today. Just go to FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up today. FanDuel, official partner of Major League Baseball. Major League Baseball trademarks used with permission. FanDuel is the official partner of Major League Baseball. Use code LOCKEDON to sign up, and don't forget to snag your no sweat first bet up to $1,000 with FanDuel. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We're free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. This won't be too long of a segment. After everything Troy Weaver said in his presser, it sounds like, and I'm not ruling it out. Because there's a lot of rumors about the Pistons talking with Utah about potentially trading back. There's a lot of talk about the Pistons potentially being a team that trades their 5th overall pick. But with the way Troy Weaver spoke at his presser, it just sounds like that he likes the guys at 5 and he doesn't want to move out of 5. On a possible trade, he was asked, he said, quote, "We're open to improving the team, but do we like the players we're vetting out at 5? Absolutely. We're still open to different opportunities as well." But he goes on to talk very much so about how much value he believes he has in the 5th overall pick. He says right here, "We feel good about the value of 5. There's been a lot of banter and talk about a lot of picks, and we feel good about being at the 5 and the value there." He talked about wanting to take a home run swing at 5, something you just won't be able to do as much as you go deeper and deeper into the first round. So what I think is going to happen, this is my prediction. Am I saying that he's ruling out? And some people could take that whole value thing of number 5 and flip it and say he's putting that out there to try to hype up the value so he can get more in a trade back. Maybe that's how you want to look at it. I didn't look at it that way. When he was talking, I didn't take it that way. To me, everything he says makes it sound like that he wants to pick the guy at 5, whoever's there. But I've said to you guys for a while, I've heard that they want to get another first-round pick in the top 20. I still believe that is the case. Troy Weaver was also asked about potentially getting another first-round pick. He wasn't asked about potentially trading for another first, but he was asked about the first round and the value throughout the first round. And he said that he believes that there are a lot of guys with the qualities he covers in this draft up and down the entirety of the first round. So what I think is going to happen, if I had to put my money on it, I think they're going to swing a trade. They're going to keep 5, and then they'll swing a trade with like Bojan in 31, maybe Bojan, Bagley in 31, something like that to get back up into the top 20. That's what I believe they're going to do. I think the Lakers are a prime destination for it. Rumors are saying right now, I believe just yesterday, that it said the Lakers are not likely to keep that pick. They definitely will be trading it. Another team, the Dallas Mavericks, they're actively looking to try and move the 10th pick for a veteran win-now player. I think Bojan is that. I don't know if they could get better than that. Mavs fans feel like they could get better than that. I don't think they will. So we'll see if they can do that. There's multiple teams throughout the top 20 I think could be interested in Bojan Bogdanovic and maybe 31, or if you package Bojan and Bagley or Bojan and Wiseman or some kind of package, I could see that happening. If I had to bet right now, I think the Pistons stay at 5. They make their pick, but I still believe they get another first-round pick and with a trade like I just mentioned. However, before we leave, if the Pistons did trade back And the main talking point in the Pistons community about a potential trade back is the Utah Jazz. Because there's some rumors that the Utah Jazz have been talking to the Pistons and trying to get up to 5 to take Anthony Black, and they would trade 9 and 16 to the Detroit Pistons. If the Pistons did that, this would be the thinking, I believe. This would be the thinking I believe would be with Troy Weaver here. So let's say the top 4 goes as we all expect it to. Now, maybe things change, okay? Things could change. But if things go according to how we think they will go, like Victor, Scoot, Brandon Miller, and Amen Thompson, top 4, and then Utah trades up from 9 to 5 to get Anthony Black because they think someone might take him. If that's what happens, Troy Weaver may be thinking about this. I don't know if he's thinking like this, but if they do the trade, I have to assume this would be the reasoning. If Utah jumps from 9 to 5 and takes Anthony Black, that means one of Ausar, Jarris, or Taylor Hendricks will be there for the Pistons. Will be there. Because Anthony Black, a lot of mock drafts, is not projected to go higher than this. And I don't think Anthony Black is someone the Pistons... I know they say the Pistons are high on him. I just don't think the Pistons will take him over those 3 guys. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. I'd have to see it to see it for me to believe it. I don't believe it. So if they were to take Anthony Black at 5, the Pistons, if they have Ausar, Jarris, and Taylor Hendricks, and that's Cam Whitmore as well. Jarris, Cam Whitmore, Ausar Thompson, and Taylor Hendricks. If they have all those guys in like the same type of tier, and they think they can move back, get assets, additional assets, and then just be able to pick one from whoever's left from that tier, if they feel comfortable about doing that, I could see them doing that trade. I personally don't think it would be the smartest thing to do to move back that far, because even if you have those guys in the same tier, I would prefer to like be able to have your top pickings from whoever it is, not just like whoever's left and you just take them. I feel like you'd like to have a little bit more control over who you pick at that point. But I'm assuming that would be the idea behind trading to 9. Is that, hey, we got these guys in the same tier. They're not too crazy far apart from each other. We'll just take whoever's left from that at 9. And then at 16, we like somebody. We know we'll like somebody at 16. And now we got 2 guys like we wanted. I think that would be the thinking. I wouldn't do it again for the reason I brought. I think 9's a little bit too far to trade down from 5, because now you're really just basically saying I'll take whoever's left instead of having any kind of like control over the situation. But if the Pistons did it, that would be my understanding, or what I believe would be the reasoning behind it. So let me know in the comment section down below or over on Twitter if that reasoning would be enough for you guys to trade back to 9 and 16. Again, let me know in the comment section down below or over on Twitter at KukaHill. That's all I've got for you guys today. Thank you guys for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We're free and available on all your podcast platforms. Hit that subscribe button to the YouTube channel. Leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. The draft is tomorrow. Can't wait. Let me know who you guys think the Pistons are picking. Comment section down below. Until next time, I'll see you guys later. Peace out.